M-O-N-E-Y. Those 5 letters add up to money, and money is what small businesses and entrepreneurs are interested in today. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Thanks for joining us on NxBizSuccess, and I have a guest for you who can help us understand how to get money, how to attract money, and how to get a loan, whether or not you're bankable or not. My guest today is Dale Marples. Dale, you are the head of the CFO Omaha, right, which is a financial advising firm essentially in the Omaha, Nebraska area. Is that right?
Yes, and I specialize just in businesses.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of provide an a la carte service. It's an interesting entrepreneurial business that you have because you're kind of carving out the whole financial spectrum and saying, I'll be your part-time CFO. Isn't that right?
That's correct. And anywhere from plans to operations to financing, that I can wear that kind of a hat, whatever you need.
And you know, that's an incredible gift. We're not going to linger on this, but to be able to have access to that kind of expertise on a part-time basis, that's a great advantage for a small business. So,
well, and a small business doesn't need to spend the money for somebody in a full-time when you can outsource those things. That's the trend today, outsource.
It really is. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, let's talk about cash flow. You know, I recently took a survey or read a survey, I think it was in USA Today, that the #1 thing that put small businesses under, cause failure, was cash flow problems. And I'm sure you know about that.
And that is a major problem. So many businesses are just underfunded, and cash flow, the lack of it, is going to cause them not to be able to be successful.
Right. And you know, there are going to be hundreds and thousands of people that will be watching our video right here saying, tell me something I don't know, all right? Because they're looking every week or every month at their revenues and their expenses, and many times it's just not there. Now, other than closing the business or completely reinventing the business, a person like you can take a look at their cash flow statement, their P&Ls, right, their balance sheet. And what's the first and most common thing that you see other than the obvious shortfall? Is it the gap between the money that's supposed to be there and the expenses that are right there knocking on the door right now?
Yeah, it's very common that they don't know their cost, and therefore they don't have enough margin in what they're doing, or they have over-obligated themselves to purchases, or they have taken on something that's too big and the payment for the work they've done is lagging.
Now, before we go into bankability, because I know that you're an expert in helping people bridge that gap and apply for appropriate loans and so on, but let's come back to that margin issue for just a minute. Why don't they, it's not that tough to know what your costs are as it comes, some product comes in and you mark it up and you sit it on a shelf and you resell it and so on. What's the big deal? Why is it so hard to understand expenses and margins?
It really isn't that hard, but too many people feel that they have to be competitive with the person down the street or who else is there, and so they set their prices based upon what their competitors doing instead of looking at what are my costs and then price my product based upon a profit for me.
See, I see this conversation heading towards marketing and sales already, trying to create value, which is a very interesting, that's a separate discussion. Yes. If you're taking a look at an overall organization's issues, do you normally try to solve problems on the cost side, or do you normally end up having a lot of talks about generating more revenues and getting more money in the door? Which of those two areas, typically for a small business, is the big problem?
If you're talking about just a small operation where just the husband and wife are operating it, then their expenses are probably fairly as low as they can.
Sure.
And so we need to look at increasing in the income side.
Sure.
But generally, you look at both of them because there may be a weakness on one side or the other.
Right.
And particularly if you bring somebody in from the outside, they're not emotionally involved in that, and they can question all of the expenses and all of the income.
Without getting into those hot button areas that are emotionally touchy.
That's right.
Like we got to have that, you know, and yeah, I understand how that goes. Well, listen, let's say, for instance, somebody says, you know, it just doesn't seem we're going to have, we're not going to be able to make payroll in another month or so, and we need some input. We probably need a loan. What are the 3 or 4 things that come to mind immediately that people need to understand before they go walk through that door?
They need to look at their operation and determine, do I have the ability to go to the bank and get a loan?
Yeah.
Because you just don't walk in, and particularly in today's economy, you don't walk in and get the loan. But if you're a company who has the assets or the ability to repay, then that's a good possibility.
It's a good option. Now, It is harder today. The bar's been raised, right, insofar
Yes.
as getting a straight-up loan from a banker. Is that correct?
It is.
And if you're perceived as a risk or maybe a slightly marginal organization, you know, what about the Small Business Administration, SBA loans? Is that something that is worth looking into if you're in that kind of a gray area?
Certainly. You should never prejudge yourself. I always operate under the fact that the worst that they can say is no.
Yeah.
And if you don't go in, you've already got to know. So prepare yourself, go in and
Sure.
make a presentation, and the banker will tell you whether you qualify or not.
Yeah.
And let them do it. And if you have a good banker, one who's interested in you, they will even tell you what you might do to make yourself bankable to come back and talk to them again.
Now, what if the situation's a little bit more urgent than that? Is there creative financing? It's just, you know, we're not going to make it so until we get a check in 8 weeks, so we got to shut the company down? I mean, what do you do for people who are in this situation?
You look at, is there something in your company that you can convert into a quick cash?
Okay. Sell off a hard asset or something like that.
That's a possibility.
Okay.
Maybe you have employees that maybe they can make some concessions to you that can help you carry it through.
Like a shorter work week.
Yes.
Or job sharing, those kinds of things. Absolutely. I think that's a great suggestion. Well, you know, you mentioned to me earlier the 3 C's. Try to go through that with me, because I know you used to be a banker. You're going through the mind. Somebody sits down, they bring the paperwork. What 3 things are going through your head?
To a banker, it's really simply, there are 3 C's. There is character.
Okay.
Do you have the character? Are you the kind of a person who's going to do what you say you do,
Right.
follow through, and you're committed to it?
Okay. A reputation and a history, a track record.
Exactly.
You bet.
Good credit rating also.
Okay.
The second thing is collateral.
All right.
Do you have the collateral to secure my loan?
Right.
So that in case you don't pay, can I sell the collateral and pay off the loan?
Okay. And what would be the 3rd C?
The third thing is the capacity to repay.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. You may be the right character, you may have the collateral, but if your business is not producing income that you can repay that loan, then you're still not going to qualify.
Now, it's a little bit tough, because if I get the loan, then I'm going to get the new client, and then my revenue is going to jump up 20 or 30%. And it's a little hard for the banker to necessarily envision that. I mean, they assume the worst situation, don't they really?
They do. You have to prepare yourself against the worst. But if this loan is going to help you increase your business, then you project what you're going to do with the increase.
Right.
You take it into the banker and say, with this loan, I can produce this much income. This is my ability to service the debt.
Right.
And sell your project to them.
All right. Well, Dale Marples with CFO Omaha, I appreciate you taking time and giving us the insider view on financials. Next to legal, it's probably the most complicated and misunderstood aspect of operating a small business long term. And
It is, and it's scary because it's the unknown.
that's right. It is very scary. Speaking of scary, thanks for joining us here at NBS. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Now you know about money. That 5-letter word doesn't have to frighten you anymore. Tune in next time to NBS. Keep on going and keep on growing.